Might have to put it side by side to the pellet grill and see how it shakes out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand? Join with me in our salute to our flag and our country. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Remain standing for our prayer, please.
Let us join in prayer. God of heaven and earth, thank you for the blessing of this day, for the breath of life, and for the hope in times that can seem difficult. We pray for your blessing on these gathered here to do the work of the city of Guthrie. Give them strength and wisdom to lead them well and make decisions that will benefit the people of this community according to your purposes. In the Bible, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have placed them to promote peace and order and justice. I pray for our mayor and for our city officials and the council assembled here to do this. Be the guard over them and their families. Bring discernment, harmony, and joy to this meeting. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Call to order our Guthrie Public Works Authority meeting of June 7th. Second item on the agenda is public comments and recognition. Do we have anything submitted?
We do.
That me?
Yep.
We got two.
We got two. They weren't submitted.
2 recognitions?
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
that's what I heard. Rumor on the street.
Shut up, Don.
Here, Mr.
Yeah, Don, where'd you get that hat?
All right, state your name and address, please.
My name's on my desk, and I stay in the northeast side in a refrigerator box down right before you run into the creek.
Okay,
And he's county trash, so he don't count.
I'm half a block out. I should get a little bit of leeway,
just a half a block out?
just a half a block.
Okay. All right, and what is the recognition here?
We are the two that organize the Blow and Smoke Barbecue Bash for the Hope House. And we're just two guys with no sense sitting around, and we like to get together and cook, as a lot of people do. And we said, well, why don't we do this? And everybody's always wanting to taste it, so maybe if we charged them to taste it, we could do somebody some good. So that's how it came about. I'll let Jeff finish whatever he wants to say, and then I'll finish up. That way he gets no rebuttal.
Nah.
Well, I just want to thank
strategy.
everybody involved. I want to thank Dawn for doing the majority of the work. James helped us out a little bit. Tracy, Brian, Dan came down. We spent a lot of time down there. Leroy was there both days, Friday and Saturday. And I just think the community won here all around, you know. It was good, and hope that it turns out as good next year.
Are you done?
Well, yeah.
We have 5 minutes.
Secrecy on the other, so.
Well, I ain't, so look out, I'm gonna drop the bomb. No, it was a great event. I think everybody had a lot of fun. And if you've never seen a councilman do a backflip out of a lawn chair at 3 a.m,
It wasn't 3, it was 10 in the
or
morning.
if you've never seen a councilman jump up and yell, their tent's on fire, the tent's on
That
fire in the
happened.
middle of the night,
That did happen.
yeah, it might have happened down there, but
Sure, it was 10 in the morning.
we won't tell all of Brian's problems he had that night. But it was a lot of fun, and we hope to get to do it again. Well, actually, we have one on the calendar for the same weekend next year. And we're probably, going to be looking around for different beneficiaries if it works out. But the thing of it is, we just gave them a place to do it. The thing we really owe is to the cooks. We have people that came from Arizona, came from Texas, came from Minnesota. A lot of different places came to this event. Yeah, Perry, and all over. And all of these teams, they woke up or went to bed Thursday night knowing that they probably wouldn't see bed again till Saturday night. Because when they got up Friday morning, they hit the ground running. They did their thing, moved in, set up, cooked all night, and then served the public all day. So without them, and if they all see this, we've told them many times, without the cooks, we wouldn't have anything. We wouldn't have an event or anything, because they're the ones that made the event. And we were glad to have all of them. But anyway, it turned out to be a great deal for the community. And, you know, when you get some of the naysayers that say there's never anything to do here, this was for the people. It wasn't for us. We didn't make a dime. We got no benefit out of it. And the thing of it too, we could have said we're going to have a benefit for Hope House and rounded up some sponsors and then just turned around and took it to Hope House without all the work. So we gathered it all up, gathered up sponsors, got people to partner with us, and then went through the trouble of making it something for the people here. And I hope some of those naysayers look around and realize someday that it isn't quite as bad here as what you would like everybody to believe. But there's people that worked hard. There's a lot of people in this room that helped make it happen, and a lot of people that aren't in this room. But everybody put their heart into it and really worked hard at making it successful, and hopefully our next one will be better. Anyway, all the numbers are crunched and everything that's the next thing. After you clean everything up, then you get to crunch numbers for a couple of days, but we've got it sorted out. And we would like to present this to the Hope House if you want. One of y'all want to come on up here?
Whoa, my word.
Oh my goodness.
We ended up with $3,067, and we hope this helps you guys out and helps you
Amen.
do what you're trying to do.
Incredible.
Walk in, please.
That's a blessing.
Jeff.
3, 2, 1, smile.
Great.
All right.
Great.
Don't forget to endorse the back of that one.
Yeah, I'll take that to the bank of the
Got Jeff's name on it, they'll cash it in.
On behalf of Neighborhood Hope Dealers, Hope House Guthrie, and our board of directors, and our city council, and everybody who supports Hope House Guthrie, we just celebrated our 2-year anniversary, so this was right on top of that, and totally unexpected. I didn't ask you to do it. We didn't ask you to do it. You took it upon yourself, and I thought that was incredibly generous, thoughtful, gracious of all of you that were involved in that. And I just can't thank you enough. And it really warms my heart and gives me faith that people in the community of your stature, of your placement, all of you are believing what we're trying to do over there. We are doing it. We are being successful. We have people with 2 years now of sobriety.
That's
They're only
awesome.
2 years old, so something's working.
For those of you in the viewing audience who don't know exactly what we're talking about, this was a national barbecue competition that Jeff and Don were the main idea people behind. Lots of sponsorship went into it. This past Saturday at Mineral Wells Park, a great community event, as Don and Jeff have identified, and again, a great donation to another significant part of the fabric of our community, the Hope House. And so Don, Jeff, thank you very much for your leadership in that regard. And for everybody that supported, thank you all very much.
My turn?
Yeah.
I think it's important that we don't take ourselves too seriously, and we're able to make fun of ourselves from time to time. With that being said, I'm a proud member of the Shut Up Don Club. And if I'd phrased it, it probably wouldn't be something you wear on a hat. As we talked about, the Blow and Smoke Barbecue Bash was Saturday in Mineral Wells Park. It was an excellent community event that was well attended. It complemented the Red Brick Nights event later that evening, and it provided funding resources to a good cause, Hope House Guthrie. But to me, I noticed another significant benefit as well that I think should be recognized. The team building and camaraderie between members of our governing body. If you were there, you saw Councilman Channel, Councilman Bothroyd, Councilman Williams, and Councilman Case were all very active. They were interacting and team building. And while maybe not at this particular event, I know Councilman Long helped put this together as part of Red Brick Nights, but each of the councilmen over the last several months have done other things that were team building. Team building is the process of turning a group of individual contributing group members into a cohesive team. A group of people organized to work together to meet the needs of the community by accomplishing their purpose and goals. While I indicated earlier it's important that we don't take ourselves too seriously, but we do also need to recognize our achievements and accomplishments. We strive to put together events each year to encourage and recognize accomplishments of city staff, but I think it's also important to recognize strides made by our governing body. With that, I have some hats that I'm going to hand out that are a small token, but symbolic of Team Guthrie approach that we tried to achieve and perfect. And I think this event was one of those events where there was some camaraderie and team building. So with that, I went to get some Guthrie hats. And I'd like to hand these out to recognize the efforts of the city council trying to work together and become
Nice.
a team effort.
Thank you, Leroy.
Thank you. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Nice hat.
And Dan, I got one for you since you were
Did,
there.
Thank you, Leroy. That's our nice hats.
That's all I have.
Team Guthrie does it again. Third item on our agenda is the consent agenda, item A, which is the approval of the minutes of May 17th Public Works Authority meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
In a second? I'll make, okay. A motion and a second. Any discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Let's see the votes.
Okay.
Unanimous approval from all those council present to approve consent agenda item A. Item number 4, discussion and possible action to approve change order number 1 for the sanitary sewer improvement project, increase of $430 and adding 15 days additional construction. Penny, are you handling that?
Then you can.
Okay.
Change order 1 to our 2022 sanitary sewer improvement increases our original contract by $430 and adds 15 days to the original contract. Reasoning behind the change order, in the original contract we had some areas that were kind of an exploratory dig that was built into the contract for the exploratory to see what we had. One area was underneath State Highway 33. We had to determine whether or not there was steel casing that the sewer line ran through. That was unknown. Contractors dug that area up, discovered there was no steel casing there, which in return, we would have to permit that, and that item was going to be very costly to us. So we pulled that area of the project out, and the second area over by Magnolia Court, there was another area that was a little bit unknown what we had in the area. We knew that we had a short section of sewer line that went someplace. We didn't know how far. Contractor was able to finally get through that area and cambered it, discovered we had an additional 322 feet of line that went up behind some homes, had 11 taps that tapped into this. So what we did, we just, in change order one, we've kind of balanced that funds out. The money that we had in the original contract for the pipe that goes underneath State Highway 33, we are asking to use those funds to extend the 322 feet over on Magnolia Court. It increases the contract by $430 and adds 15 days to the original contract. We'll have to reevaluate and look at the Highway 33 project in the future.
So moved.
Second. A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
Unanimous approval from those councilmen present to then approve change order number one, adding $430 to our sewer improvement project in 15 days. Item number 5, discussion possible action for the renewal of the contract with Waste Connections for the collection and disposal of trash for a 5-year period beginning October 1st of 2023, expiring September 30th of 2028. Leroy?
Brittany Eggleston with Waste Connections will present their proposal.
All right, Brittany?
Guys, good evening. Thanks for taking the time to meet with me again. After the last meeting, we went over our pricing and readjusted. So years 2 through 5 have a change of a price increase to 5%. And year 1 is still where the biggest chunk of percentages. We readjusted a lot of the price over the commercial pricing, and the biggest changes were the 3-yard and the 8-yard. And the reason we did that, so we kind of compared our pricing here to front load pricing everywhere else. All of our other municipalities, Oklahoma City, and the 3-yard and the 8-yard were just really underpriced. So we right-sized to the price that they should be. So they got the biggest price increase compared to the last proposal we presented. So the 8-yard, the difference from the original one is a 17.6 price increase. With the difference in this, we think there might be a lot of commercial accounts that have a bigger size and go, 3 to 4 or 5 times a week, and maybe they don't need that service, but the price was so cheap they just had it. So this may also adjust some service levels, and customers may still be able to save money with that being said. But everything else is pretty much the same from the first time, minus the 5% change with the residential years 2 through 5, as well as the commercial 5%.
Okay.
Are there any questions I could answer?
What took you so long?
So you readjusted for the residential, it reduced, your original proposal was what, 8?
Yeah, I believe it was, so it was 8% across the board for 2 through 5, and year 1 was a 15%.
And you kept the 15%, but reduced the 2 through 5 to 5%
Yes,
instead of
sir.
8?
Mhm.
Okay?
The residential price isn't as far off as it should be compared to other municipalities throughout the state. This 5-year plan gets it to where it needs to be, but it's not as far underpriced as some of the commercial pricing was.
Okay. Yeah, I think Leroy, when we first discussed it, we had some comparative data with other cities, and this was clearly in the ballpark.
Yes.
And I think I did a little calculation, or actually it was in the handout that we have, so that 15% for the residential amounts to about a $1.30 a month increase, and then the 5% in years 2 through 5 is about a 50-cent increase each
Yes, sir.
month, continually for those 5 years. So that holds that line. Any other questions of Brittany?
Are we gonna do the stuff like Walmart and,
Do what?
The Walmart, the Loves, and the, I'm missing the third.
That,
I think autoclav.
Auto Equip.
that will,
Are all listed in here as significant increase.
that discussion will come at the next item relative to our rates that we charge, because we've been passed through with no markup on those. And so when we talk about our rates, that's where we'll cover that.
But it was also shown as a separate item on your proposal.
We bill it as a separate item on the invoice, just because they have compactors, so they're not lumped into the rest of the invoice.
All right?
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All vote for in.
See the vote. Unanimous approval then.
Thanks, Brittany.
Accept the proposal as submitted by Waste Connections for increase in rates for 5-year period, October 1 of '23 to September 30th of '28. Item number 6, discussion possible action to approve resolution 2022-5, which amends fees and charges and policies for services in connection with the collection and disposal of trash. Leroy?
Item number 6.
At the end of this presentation, I'll probably recommend that a couple things. One, a lot of formulas, a lot of spreadsheets. I want an opportunity to go back and double check all those one more time. But then I would like to take this to the Finance Committee for them to help fine tune it to come back with the final recommendation on the ordinance. You have the PowerPoint in front of you, but I also,
Oh my gosh,
psychedelic.
We're going back to the 1960s.
The first one, if you look behind the cover letter, I have, it's a little bigger, if you want to look at that, and it's the first document after the cover letter. But if you look at from 2006 to 2023, even though they were capped at 2% or less CPI index over that period of roughly 17 years, our cost from Waste Connections has went up 24%. In that same time period, our revenue, what we charge the end user, has not changed at all. The last resolution was adopted in 2006 in September to go in effect in October of that year. It was a 12.5% increase, so our rate to our customers, $13.24. We've not raised it since. The next one in your packet does a comparison of what that has done to our revenue stream. And what I've done on these spreadsheets, I only handed out one large spreadsheet. I tried to condense the others into more manageable slides. In February of this year, I took the invoice from Waste Connections, and that's This is the classification and the customer count. And I've used that each year in 2006, in 2022, and then projection on future rates, because then we can compare apples to apples. If we use the number of customers in 2006 versus them, every sheet would be different. So to have apples to apples on all of these, we've used the February 2022 customer count. And we had 4,713 residential customers and 604 commercial customers. We have a few commercial customers out of town, but it didn't make a significant difference and would have made the spreadsheet twice as big. So Waste Connection charges the same amount for commercial in town and out of town. So I condensed all of them into in town. But if you look at the expense in 2006, this is the rates that Waste Connections charged us for these various residential customers. And then times the number of customers. So the bill for residential back in 2006 for 4,713 customers would have been just over $32,000. The commercial, I combined them all in the together. I've got the spreadsheet if you want to see it. But combined commercial cost was $36,376.99. And of course, there was a state fee and then a deduct for the office space that we provided over on Harrison. So the total of the invoice back in 2006 would have been just over $69,000. If you annualize that, $830,000. Then you go to the revenue side in February of 2006. This is our user fees for residential as compared to what it cost us. And the revenue that we generated, and 61,000 was generated revenue. Our net, if you take the difference between these two, was a little over 28,000, the other one was 29. So our markup on residential was 89%. If you look at all the commercials, it generated a revenue of 54,000. If you look at the difference in that, was 17,000. And our markup was 48% for all classes combined. So total revenue was 115,000. Margin or net was 45, and 66% when you combine all the classes. And it makes part of the struggle of figuring out how to put this together is these percentages are pretty significantly different. But our margin, if you 45,800, take it times 12, roughly the margin at that time was about $550,000. And then if you look at the bottom of that same sheet is the next slide. So if you go forward to October 2022, the rates of Waste Connections, for example, on Polycard Inside has gone from $7.03 to $8.69. So in 2022, in February, our invoice was $85,000. And if you annualize that, our cost was a little over $1 million to Waste Connections for these residential and commercial customers. Then, if you look on the revenue side, of course, our rates didn't change. So our revenue was $360,000 net. So our revenue net decreased from the 556, from 549,000 to 360,000. So our operating funds decreased by $189,000 during that time frame. Now, if you go to your next slide.
So we haven't had an increase in 16 years.
Again, if you look at what we're proposing for consideration is to take the rate of Waste Connections, and instead of increasing based off what our current rates are, is to just go back and whatever our cost is from Waste Connections, mark it at 55%. And you will notice that if you go back to 2006, the overall percentage of markup was 65,000, or 65%. Well, the reason it's 55% coming forward is it's a percentage of a bigger number, because the cost have went up. So that's why the percentage is went down from 65 to 55 to generate the same amount of money. If we do that and we increase 55% across the board, then we would go back, I'm sorry, it's the wrong one. Then we would go back to the point of generating $556,000 annually in net revenue, which is very similar to where we were back in 2006. So we're catching back up. So that would generate us $200,000 more than if we just sat still and never raised rates. And eventually, if we don't raise the rates, we'll be paying the customers for us to have the privilege of doing the trash service, because as the next 5 years, as we just approved, those rates will continue to go up. Revenue generated through city trash service funds funds the deficit revenue to maintain and operate the convenience center. That doesn't fully pay for its own operation. Provides general funding for Public Works Authority, just like the revenue from city and water, sewer, utility service funds, those respective utilities, and provides general funding for Public Works operation. Again, the city has not adjusted the trash rates charged to local residential and commercial businesses since 2006. Since October 2006, our cost from Waste Connections has increased 24%, but we didn't increase the end user fee. Some people would suggest, well, you shouldn't mark it up at all, you ought to just do it at cost. It takes money to operate the city. And I would remind the public and the council, as we have talked in the last several months, we have 55 miles of water lines that were built prior to 1975. And if we are going to replace those old water lines that create a lot of problems for us, $31 million. We need to paint our water towers, $2 million. At some point, the booster pump on our 24-inch water line only allows us, even though our capacity at the two lakes is 7 million, our plant can do 6 million, we can only get 4 million gallons a day from the water source to the plant. We'll need, as we grow, we'll need to add that booster pump to keep up with the demands. We need to make improvements to Guthrie Lake Spillway. That's almost a $2 million project. We have 22 millions of miles of failed sewer line that we need to replace at 26 million. We need to do a full depth replacement of Sooner Road and 19th Street. That's a $12 million project. And then if we look at that full depth replacement of Sooner Road includes 2 of the bridges, but then we have 9 other bridges, and upgrading and replacing those, another 13 million. So there's $88 million of projects we need to do. So I hope people understand, if we're going to start addressing some of these, there's going to have to be growth in revenue to do that. Again, just some highlights that we talked about before. This is the a cutout of the 1920 water line that we opened bids for last week to replace, and you can see the buildup of minerals and sediment in that line, and many of our lines look at that. It's safe to drink because it is just mineral deposits, but anytime that water gets stirred up by a leak or other events, then we have odor, color, and taste issues. You can go to the grocery store and buy bottled water that's been purified, but if you pour it through those pipes to get to people's houses, it's never going to get any better until we replace those 50 miles of line. The brittle cast iron pipe, we constantly have leaks. Sometimes we have multiple leaks per week. The valves are dysfunctional, so if you have a leak, you can't isolate that. Sometimes we have to shut large sections of town down in order to drain out that segment of line so we can repair it. Recently, on the 12-inch line, we even had to shut down the water plant, which then creates a fire issue, because if you have a fire, you're dependent on what water's in your water tower. And then you have cost of the water loss, because that's treated water, and you have manpower cost. Water tower is just an example of inside and out need to be painted. This is just a demonstration of the need to increase the capacity of our raw water line that provides water from our 3 water sources of plant. As we grow, we'll need to bump that up to 6 million gallon a day flow, and the only way to do that is add a booster pump to this raw water line. 22 miles of sewer line. With the damaged and failed sewer lines, potential damage to private property, impact on the environment, potential sewer backups into private structures, sewer overflows, discharge of untreated wastewater into the environment, and then infiltration, groundwater gets into our sewer pipes, and then when you get to the plant, not only are we treating wastewater, we're treating groundwater as well. In many cases, inflow and infiltration accounts for up to 45% of the annual flow to the treatment plant. Sooner Road and 19th Street, on Sooner Road, I don't even think I have to show pictures. This parallels 35, and you can see some of the conditions. Anybody that drives it knows that that sorely needs to be replaced, and it is a major north-south corridor for our residents. And then 19th Street, just some samples of those pictures. Now, we have applied for a RAISE grant through the Federal Highway Administration. That grant, if funded, would provide $10 million of that 12.5, but still got to come up with $2.5 million in matching money even to get that 10. So even if you get grants, you still got to have matching money. Bridges, the two in pink are the two that are on Sooner Road that we will include in reconstruction of Sooner Road. But if you look at the remaining 9, it's almost $10 million. And I just did that to remind everybody that there's a lot of projects, this community, because of deferred maintenance over the years, we're going to have to catch up at some time, and it's going to take revenue to do it. Another option when we get to this year's budget, if our revenue over the last 15 years, because we haven't increased our rates, roughly $200,000. When we do the budget this year, I think you'll see everybody's going to propose more personnel. And so if you look at, if we increase trash rates roughly $200,000, 2 equipment operators with salary and benefits would be $95,000. And then on firefighters, we've had a lot of discussion lately. The amount of runs that we're seeing with the fire department, and especially EMS, we cover 2/3 of the county. We're looking at working with the county in the future to try to generate some additional money from the rural area or the unincorporated area to pay more of the cost of the ambulance service. Right now, we get 3 mills from the EMS districts. That's not enough to fund the ambulance service in the unincorporated area. But even if we work with the county, that funding won't be available in the next budget year. So if we want to go ahead and add firefighters, EMTs, while we're working through that, if you add 2 firefighters, that's $106,000. So that would be one way you could use the increase. Once we do get funding from the rural area to help offset additional EMTs to serve that area, then that money could then go back to Public Works. But it could be a stopgap to allow us to go ahead and add 2 firefighter EMTs while we're working through the process to explore other funding opportunities. The large spreadsheet that I give you, and I didn't know how to put this on the screen.
So you're only proposing a 43-cent increase on the polycar, on a residential single polycar.
It would go from $13.24 to $13.47.
Yeah, so, and you're actually reducing the second polycar.
Yes.
Well,
So, again, if you start on the right-hand side, that's our customer count from February of this year. And then we're anticipating a 2% increase effective October under the current contract. That gives you our cost. Then if you come across in the blue, that is the in-town rate and also the outside town rate. And you can see the markup that we do on commercial for out of town. The Waste Connections charges, this is the same amount whether it's in town or out town for commercial. But for example, on a polycart one-time pickup, if it's outside city limits, it's 18% more than in town. And it varies anywhere from 3 to negative 13%. Some of them are even cheaper than in town. And so it's all over the board. If you look at just as a placeholder, and it won't affect these numbers because I based all my numbers on in-town rates. But if you look at 100 or 50% markup, so if in town on a commercial was $10, then out of town would be $15. Whatever our markup is, I think it ought to be consistent all the way through, whether if it's out of town, it's 25% more or 50% more, it ought to be consistent. And that's what I think the Finance Committee can help come up with a recommendation. Then the new rate, if you look at the salmon collar, where it says 66% markup above Waste Connection. So that's not 66% more than the current rate in the resolution. It's 66% more than the cost that we have. And so it would be, I'm sorry, 55%.
That's what I was
I'm
looking for.
sorry.
But that's gonna, the 50, that was my question, the 55 is gonna follow the cost.
Correct. And then in the future, whatever we come up with, then rather than have to wait 20 years to do this again, we will adopt a resolution that sets it out that whenever Waste Connection fees go up, our fees will automatically go up. So if it's $10, it will be that plus 55%. If it goes to $11, it would automatically be that plus 55% more. And so it would automatically adjust itself as we have CPI index.
That's how you proposed it here, right?
Correct. And then I show in-town revenue with it marking it up 55%, net revenue, and as I did on the summary sheet, that will, in 2006, our net revenue was $549,000. With what I'm proposing, our net revenue will go back up to $563,000. So we're not really making more money, we're just getting back to where we were in 2006 as far as our net revenue.
And that's what we said in the first meeting, get back up in line where
Correct.
we were.
And most of that's through the commercial.
We are, right now, the way our rate structure is, we're more heavy on what we charge residential than we are commercial. And we would get back to making it more even playing field where the markup is similar, not heavily weighted just on residential.
And that does,
That changes with the proposed contract that Waste Connection is proposing.
Yes.
Because the commercials were anywhere from 20 to 30% increase.
Yes.
So that,
but this doesn't include the companies that were not billing.
I did not include it on this spreadsheet, but if we mark it up 55% rather than be a pass-through, and that's why I want to work with the Finance Committee, our recommendation at this point would be they would be marked up 55% as well.
that would make sense.
So what I'd like to do with your all's agreement is to sit down with the Finance Committee and work through this spreadsheet. Well, first I want to go back and make sure I didn't have any formula errors, because I've tried to double check multiple times and set it up where it double checks itself, but there's a lot of formulas in this spreadsheet. I'd like to go back and double check that, and then I'd like to sit down with the Finance Committee and come back with a recommendation from the Finance Committee for your all's consideration.
So you want to bring a new spreadsheet to that meeting?
It may be the same spreadsheet, but it would be with their recommendation.
Okay.
So you're suggesting no action taken at this time, but a number of steps. Review of your data, number one, take it to the Finance Committee, number two.
And then they would make a recommendation, and
Recommendation to
at
the
that
council.
time, based on their recommendation, we'll have the actual resolutions present to you based on this type of layout, unless they adjust it. But basically, what we'll be doing is going to a format where whatever our cost is, our markup would be 55% above that. And then we'll need to decide on out of town, is there going to be an additional charge? A lot of towns do that. So for example, if there was a commercial, and I'm just using a number, $10 in town, If you marked it up 50%, it'd be $15 if you were outside the city limits. That will be something the finance committee, they may say 25%, they may say 0, just flat. But I think this gives us an idea of where we're headed, but I would like to work with the finance committee to come back with a formal recommendation.
Okay. Questions of Leroy?
When do you want to do it?
Probably get with the finance committee, if you're all agreeable to that, next week to schedule a meeting. Because we'd like for this to go in effect October 1.
Okay. All right, so what I'm understanding, no action taken on this item with the proviso, review the data, take to the finance committee, then the finance committee
Yes.
bring back to the whole council their recommended proposal.
Correct.
Okay? All right? All right?
Hopefully by condensing some of these down, it was a little easier to follow.
A lot of information.
But I do have several large spreadsheets if you all need to see them.
All right. Good, we'll move forward with that. That being the last item on our Public Works Authority, we are adjourned. And I'll call to order our city council meeting of June 7th. Item number 2 is consent agenda, and I believe we have a change in consent agenda item A. We have a correction of the minutes of the May 17th on page 3 concerning the ordinance 3369. The motion actually passed 4-2. The minutes incorrectly reflected that the motion failed. This had to do with the Jake break noise ordinance, if you will. So I would propose that we amend those minutes to reflect that the
I think it's item B.
change.
Item B.
Item B, on item B for the minutes of 17th, that reflects that the ordinance 3369, that the motion passed, not failed. I thought you would. I thought you would.
Shut up,
But I think that reflected what the vote was, 4-2. So, with that amendment, I would entertain a motion then to approve the consent agenda items A and B.
So moved with the amendment.
Moved as amended. Is there a second? And a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes, please.
All votes are in.
Let's see the votes. Unanimous approval from all those present then to approve consent agenda items A and B as amended. Item number 3, discussion possible action to request special use permit to allow manufactured home on 1.23 acres of property at 2415 Cottonwood Terrace. Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as you indicated, special use permit. Per the zoning code, a manufactured home is not a permitted use anywhere within the city limits. It's only allowable through a special use permit. The property is located off of Forest Hills Road, Forest Hills subdivision. It's in the very southern part of our community. There's actually already some existing mobile homes in that area. You guys have my staff report, and so you saw the comments on the special use permit. The Planning Commission had recommended approval 2-1 for the special use permit, with the condition that the manufactured home must be a structure which meets the Federal Manufactured Home Construction and Safety Standards Acts, commonly known as the HUD code. So basically that just says you can't bring an old dilapidated mobile home in there. So with that, I'll give it back to the council if you have any questions.
It's a trailer park already.
Yeah, it is.
That's what it is.
Yeah. And these are large acreages.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is, it would be stupid
Yeah.
not to approve a mobile home.
There was one planning commission member that felt that they shouldn't be allowed anywhere in the city unless it's on a permanent foundation. That was the one dissenting vote, but it did pass, like I said, 2-1.
Yeah.
If they've already out there, I don't know.
Yes.
Okay.
There's a number of them
I
out
make a
there.
motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to approve the special use permit allowing manufactured home on 2415 Cottonwood Terrace, subject to the HUD code.
Yes, to that condition, thanks.
And item number 4, discussion and possible action to request a special use permit to allow manufactured home on 2.818 acres of property at Oakwood Drive.
I'll make this quick, I'll make this quick. Same area, just slightly to the east, but same thing, if you approve the first one.
So
you should-
moved.
Yes,
Second.
perfect.
Discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval from all those present then to approve the special use permit manufactured home at Oakwood Drive, lots 7 and 8, subject to
The same
HUD
condition.
The
Yep.
HUD code. Item number 5, discussion and possible action to adopt ordinance number 3371, rezone property located at 706 South Capitol from R1 to R2. Dan?
Thank you. As you indicated, this is a rezone from R1 to R2. It's there on South Capitol, in the Capitol Hill subdivision. It's currently R1. They're looking to go to R2. It's a 14,000 square foot lot. They're proposing or looking to put 2 duplexes on the property. Obviously zoned R1, it only allows 1 dwelling unit, so that's the reason they're going to R2. It fits with the comprehensive future land use map, and the Planning Commission recommended 3-0 to approve the rezone from R1 to R2.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Were there any letters of, from concerned?
Nope.
people?
The only call I got was they weren't sure what the letter meant, and when I explained it to them, they were fine.
Okay, so surrounding.
Yeah, there was no objection written or even voiced at the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval from those present. Then
Thank you.
to approve the ordinance rezoning property at 706 South Capitol from R1 to R2. Item number 6, discussion possible action to adopt ordinance number 3370, granting Oklahoma Gas and Electric Company, a Oklahoma cooperative, the right to produce, transmit, distribute electricity within city limits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Leroy?
I would point out, we have to have an electric service provider. So it's kind of, if people think about it, it's almost a no-brainer to renew their franchise permit. If there's issues relative to rates, those should be addressed through the Corporation Commission process, not on a vote of whether or not we want to have somebody provide electricity. The state statute state constitution requires, if we're going to renew a franchise, it has to be by a vote of the people, and that's why it goes to an election. I will point out, just so you remember later, we will have a franchise coming to you for a cable service, Blue Peak. There is a federal law that exempts them from requiring a vote that supersedes the state constitution. So when we bring that forward in a month or two, remember that and don't say, well, why aren't we having an election? Well, because when you deal with cable franchise, it is managed by federal law that supersedes the state constitution. Here, there is no such federal law, so for electric and gas utilities, it takes an election. You should have in front of you a revised ordinance marked up in red. We have worked with OG&E, and they have agreed to these changes. In section 1, the term property is a term used in the ordinance, and we just thought it should be defined. In section 2, we are allowing OG&E right to use our utility easements, but we do specifically want to have in there the absolute right to prohibit the company from using areas other than streets, alleys, private and public utility easements. As they use our easements, they will also, though, have to comply with all right-of-way and easement management ordinances or regulations enacted by the city, including such ordinances and regulations enacted after the effective date of this franchise. Reason that's in there is the right-of-ways get so crowded in order to maintain width, to get in to do repairs and replacement of water lines, sewer lines, we have to have some way to regulate where where underground utilities go, so that we don't end up at a point that we can no longer maintain our utilities. And then on the second page, some of our easements are limited to one purpose, like we may have an easement specifically limited to a water line. Well, we're not giving OG&E authority to use that easement for electric, because we don't have the authority to do that. We have the easement for a specific purpose. In section 3, in their work on their utilities, if they break up any pavement, sidewalk, driveway, or other surface, they have to put it back to the condition it was. If for some reason we change a roadway, whether we expand the road, change the profile of the road, the utility company is required to come in and relocate their utility to accommodate the changes in the road. It's not an expense we have to bear. And then in 7, we changed it where they pay us on a monthly basis instead of annual. And then on the next page in 7C, we added any sales and use tax as required by law. And that's basically the changes we made to the ordinance.
And that's all been discussed with OG&E?
They have accepted it.
We do have a representative, an esteemed representative of OG&E here. Spencer, you have any comments you'd like to make?
No, Leroy voiced everything.
Yep.
We had extensive conversations, so.
Okay,
no further
all right.
comments.
Council have any questions?
Is this information regarding the last vote? We actually had 81 people said they didn't want to be able to turn lights on in their house.
Where did you see that?
In the packet. Votes cast against the franchise ordinance, 81 people.
There were some people, it's just like when you run for election, I've always been told that there's a third of people vote against you, third go vote for you, and you have to figure out who the other third is if you want to win the race. There's people go vote against you.
They just didn't read it, right? No, you're right. Who would vote against not turning on electricity?
I can make a motion to approve.
Before we get started,
Yeah.
I got one quick thing, and I talked to Leroy about it, and I know I've talked to you about it as well. We gotta get these lights fixed. We still got a lot of lights out. I know Tenny's discussed it with it. I know, I'm not putting this on that. It's not to be held hostage. I just gonna say, look, if we're gonna vote for this, we got our lights gotta get fixed, okay, guys? I mean, it's getting out of hand, and we've got, and I know, I told Leroy, I said, we have brownouts at our house basically every week. And I come home and the lights are sitting there all blinking, because they've been off for 2 or 3 hours. So I'm not griping, I'm just letting you know, I said, you know, it's frustrating. I know OG&E's got a lot of problems like everybody else does, but that was just one of the things that I wanted to say. I don't know if anybody else has the same problem or not, but we do. We've got a lot of lights out.
I will mention that it's separate from the franchise agreement itself, but we are in discussions with OG&E for a economic development type agreement where OG&E provides some funding to the city to help in our efforts in economic development to recruit business and industry to our community, and also to address some of the street lighting. But that will be a separate agreement, not necessarily tied to the franchise.
Okay, any other comments or questions, either Leroy or Spencer? No, we have a motion then to approve, looking for a second. Have a motion and a second. Last discussion, submit your votes.
All votes for in?
Let's see the votes. Unanimous approval from all those present then to approve the adoption of ordinance 3370, granting Oklahoma Gas and Electric a 25-year opportunity to produce, transmit, distribute electricity in city limits. Item number 7, discussion and possible action on resolution number 2022-19, calling and holding a special election, as Leroy has identified, in the city of Guthrie for purposes of submitting for registered qualified voters the question concerning the franchise agreement for 25 years.
And this is simply a resolution that puts forth the ordinance for an election.
Okay. Entertain a motion?
Motion approved.
Second?
Second.
Lots of seconds. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
Votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to adopt resolution number 2022-19 for the citizens of Guthrie to vote on this franchise agreement. Item number 8, discussion of possible action regarding a 12-month extension and amendment to the previous agreed upon memorandum of understanding between Neutron Holdings, Lime vehicles, two-wheel vehicles, and the city of Guthrie.
Perfect. Did
Justin?
Nicely. This basically is just an amendment to the current MOU, amending 2 items. One is extending it for another 12 months, and the other item is increasing the number of what it's called mobility devices. So that could include scooters or bicycles, increasing that from 75 to 100 to add an additional 25 rental bicycles to their fleet.
Okay.
What did we get? What was our revenue off of that over the last year?
Per trip is, I think it's 5 cents. It doesn't amount to much.
Are they, I guess, happy to be here? I guess they are, if they're going to be wanting to put.
As far as I know, yeah. The regional manager who covers all of Oklahoma and some other states, he's very pleasant to work with, and he's super responsive. Anytime we've had an issue, he picks up the phone and makes it work for us. So.
Feedback mechanism that comes to you informally or formally, do you get positive feedback concerning the Lime vehicles, or?
After the first couple of weeks that they were implemented, there were some growing pains there, but since then, I haven't heard a peep from anybody, really good or bad.
I see a lot of them being used.
And they did, in the last few weeks, they started replacing the older models, so most of them that you'll see around town right now are nice and brand new and look pretty sharp.
Have you ridden one yet?
I rode one once. It's interesting. I'm waiting to meet my deductible for the year, then I'll have to do another shot.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion then to approve the 12-month extension. Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes are in.
See the votes. Unanimous approval then to approve the 12-month extension and amendments as identified by Justin. Item number 9, city manager report. Leroy.
We don't have a shut up Leroy yet,
Not yet.
I thought you just did that.
I'll be brief.
Thank you, sir.
I think this will be pleasant.
Thank you.
Congress has reinstituted the process of direct spending request, which used to be called earmarking. That's no longer a good term, so they changed the name of it. City staff has actively been pursuing our congressmen and our senators to consider direct spending request that would benefit our community. And as part of the FY23 appropriations cycle, Senator Jim Himhoff has made a number of requests to benefit Oklahoma, and including funding for the following projects in Guthrie. $4.5 million for Guthrie Edmond Regional Airport apron expansion. No match would be required for that. And $3.6 million to construct and equip a second fire station in Guthrie. A word of caution at this point, even though it has been recommended, no one knows yet when the final appropriation law will be passed. We know how that process works. And whether or not those requested projects will be selected from all the projects that members of the Senate have requested. We all know that Senator Inhofe has a fair amount of influence in D.C., and so most of his efforts are successful, but still a word of caution, it's not guaranteed yet. The $3.6 million to construct and equip the fire station will be a site yet to be determined, but it will be on the south end of the community. I have some verbiage there talking about the apron expansion at the Guthrie Edmond Regional Airport. I think, I'm not going to read that to you, but I think it's good to recognize that Senator Inhofe has always recognized that a quality airport plays a key role in the economic vitality of the region. On the fire station, I won't read all that, but clearly just providing fire service as our, even within our existing boundaries as we continue to grow, becomes more and more challenging with one fire station. Even if at some point in the future we decide not to provide ambulance service out in the county, a second fire station will benefit us because of the number of housing developments that have filled in where we have annexed in the past. On the second page, just for some explanation, on the airport, there's multiple projects. The first one in green is parallel taxiway relocation. Estimate start of construction in FY 2025. This project consists of relocating the parallel taxiway in order to meet the FAA runway taxiway separation standards. The payment's coming to the end of its life cycle, and it will be time to reconstruct the taxiway pavement in a proper location. This is in support of increase of larger aircraft utilizing the airport and ensure complete operation capability for decades to come. The funding format for that project, that is just under a $5 million project. Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission will provide $240,000. FAA under 3 different funds will provide $570,000, $3.6 million, and $300,000. And our share of the $5 million project roughly will be about $225,000 for us and about $225,000 from the city of Edmond. In purple, you can see the direct spending to for the expansion of the airport apron that would be between the new terminal and the relocated taxiway. And then on the new airport terminal, we have 2 potential options there. We have applied under a new federal grant program. We'll have 5 opportunities. The grant runs every year for 5 years. If that is funded, we would get a $3 million grant from FAA. Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission will put $500,000 in. And then the two cities, Edmond and Guthrie, would put 250,000 in. And then Plan 2, or Option 2, is a scaled-down version if over the next few years we do not get the funding for the full terminal. We will build a scaled-down model with an opportunity to add to it as we get funding. And there we will use 500,000 from the Aeronautics Commission, 250,000 from each city. And for the next 5 years, the Airport Infrastructure Grant Funds, AIG, we're getting an additional 295,000 in addition for the next 5 years, in addition to the normal 150,000. That will be 1.4 million. So that will allow us to do roughly a $2.5 million project. Of course, if we get the grant, that will free up the airport infrastructure grant funds for other purposes. So just wanted to make you aware of that.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Exciting opportunities out there. That's great. Thank you, Leroy. Item number 10, comments from council. Councilman Long.
We had June's Red Brick Nights this last weekend also. It was well attended. It was a great event. So we appreciate all the sponsors for that to make that possible. Also, it's grass growing season, so I'd ask people to please mow their lawn. We've got some yards that just look atrocious, and you could sure help out our ordinance people by just going ahead and taking the initiative to mow it. I don't care if you think you're feeding the bees, you're not. There's flowers for that. What you're doing is you're also housing ticks, rodents, snakes, everything else. And so your neighbors aren't very appreciative of you doing that. So be neighborly. You chose to live in town where there are rules and ordinances, so we please ask you to follow them and mow your yard. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Councilman Channel.
Pretty much said the cookout was a big deal. We're happy with it. We seem to have a lot of people that enjoyed it, wanting us to do it again. And I want to thank James and Red Brick Nights for his part in it, because he was we tried to cross-market it, so maybe, and I know a lot of our people that came to the cook-off went to his event, and hopefully some of his came down early to go to mine. So that's all I got.
Okay, Councilman Taylor.
We went to the Hope House anniversary, which was what, 2 years ago?
2 years anniversary.
And I thought it was a great function. I thought it was good. A lot of people have, done a lot of great things out there. So I know they're not here. I know several of them know about it, but I want to say thank you to that. Thank you, staff. That was very informative on the trash, whether it's OG&E, whether it's line scooters, whatever it was tonight. You guys did good, Dan, and you kept it under 5 minutes. That's what I really like. And other than that, shut up, Don. That's it.
Councilman Guthrie.
So in echoing what Don said, I got to see firsthand. First off, I'm real proud of Don and Jeff Fleury for putting that event on. It takes a lot more work than what these guys are saying it takes up there. It really does. It takes a lot. But there's a lot of people that showed up. They were showing up right up until the 3 o'clock mark almost. And so, I don't know how many came through, but quite a few came through there. And a lot of them just told me, this is the type of thing that's just awesome for Guthrie. And it is, in that park. By the way, commend the whole council on that park, because that was a heck of a venue for something like that. Really, truly was. So.
Super spot.
Yep. That's it.
Councilman Williams?
I was there to see the bucking of the chair, and I just thought he was very graceful.
It was a full flip.
It was perfect. I wish I filmed it. It was just, I gave it a 7.
It was one of those deals you couldn't get up and brush yourself off and look the other way because everybody's talking. And it was 10 in the morning, not 3. Are you sure?
Yeah, yes, it was in the morning.
It was after about 4 cups of coffee.
So will that be a part of next year's program also?
I don't know about that.
I mean, there are some traditions.
I'm not riding any of the coding
You've
chairs
already been
anymore.
started, so Brian, that might be the tradition to start. That might bring a lot of crowd.
Maybe.
I just, again, Don, Jeff, a great event and a great first one, and hopefully a second one will follow.
And don't take anything from James, I mean, and the whole Red Brick Nights too,
And
because that's a powerful community gathering spot.
That's a super, they've already created a branding.
Yeah.
And it's a great branding for our community, for sure. So James, thanks for highlighting that and being the spark plug and make that happen. I hope that the actions that we've taken today with putting to a vote will continue on with another partner, another positive partnership with OG&E for another 25 years of growth and again, partnering to make the community better. And Leroy, your presentation about the items that Senator Inhofe has put on, I think that reflects, again, Team Guthrie. I think it reflects you and the staff making all of our congressional delegation aware of the needs that we have and continuing to pitch that we are one hell of a good investment here in Guthrie, America. And I think that's shown in the two proposals that the Senator has put forward. And I know in speaking to other congressional delegations, they recognize the needs that we have, recognize the good things that are already happening in Guthrie, and want to be a part of continuing a positive future. So again, Leroy, thank you and your staff for keeping that buzz going and keeping the data and the information in front of the congressional delegation so that they know what our needs are. So appreciate that. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.